Well, good evening. This is Robert Wilson. I'm your host of Cowboy Wisdom Podcast. Tonight's why knowledge speaks from 7 ways why knowledge speaks from the past while wisdom speaks now. Knowledge is always talking because it only knows what it's already stored in the mind. It's a narrator for yesterday's archives, pretending to be an authority. It speaks in conclusions, category, and commentary because that's because that's all memory can do. Wisdom doesn't need to talk. Wisdom listens. Wisdom receives the moment without dragging the past into it. Knowledge reacts from what was. Wisdom responds from what is. Knowledge performs. Wisdom perceives. Knowledge repeats the script. Wisdom hearkens the signal. And the signal only broadcasts in the now. And hearken is a deeper listening, deeper listening to what's going on. And the signal only broadcasts now. That's why knowledge fills the air with noise while wisdom accomplishes in silence. One is memory speaking, and the other one's awareness awakening, expressing whatever. Why knowledge talks, why knowledge talks while wisdom listening questions, listening questions, intuition accomplish everything. Knowledge talks because it's built from memory. Wisdom listens because it's built from awareness. Knowledge is loud because it's trying to prove itself. It speaks from what already is stored in your museum. Your mind's a museum, and that's all it is. It's all full of archives and artifacts of yesterday and everything you've done. And when the now occurs, and it instigates one of your representations in there, that's what you speak. Wisdom doesn't need volume. It receives nowality directly. That's why wisdom accomplishes. It moves from what is, not what was. Knowledge talks to defend identity. Questions and intuition move to dissolve it. Knowledge protects the character the mind created. It talks to stay right, stay relevant, and stay in control. Questions and intuition never care about being right. They care about being authentic. That's why they accomplish. They open doors the mind never knew existed. Knowledge talks to maintain the past. Insight acts to create the future. Knowledge repeats. Insights unveil. Knowledge recycles old conclusions. Intuition delivers a fresh direction of daredevilry, setting yourself free. Knowledge talks because it's stuck in yesterday. Wisdom, insight, and intuition accomplish because they operate from the live broadcast, never the rerun. Why business knowledge is from the past. Because business knowledge is built from yesterday's patterns, never today's perceptions. Every best practice, every model, every framework is a fossil of what worked before. It's archive logic pretending to be leadership. Real business happens in the now, not in the museum of the past conclusions. Because business knowledge trains people to repeat what succeeded, never the sense of what's emerging. It teaches replication, never revelation. It rewards compliance with the old system instead of awareness of current reality. You can never innovate from memory. You can only imitate memory. Because business knowledge speaks from analysis, while authentic business moves from instinct. Analysis slow, backward looking, and obsessed with explanation. Instincts is fast, present, and obsessed with direction. That's why business knowledge talks as intuition, wisdom, intuition accomplish. One is commentary, the other is clarity. Why business knowledge destroys instincts. Because business knowledge replaces direct perception with pre-approved conclusions. Instinct sees what's happening now. Business knowledge forces you to interpret the moment through old models, old metrics, and old frameworks. The moment you filter reality through the past, instincts gets muted and clarity gets replaced by commentary. Because business knowledge trains obedience systems instead of responsiveness to signals. Instinct moves fast, clean, and precise. Business education teaches you to slow down and analyze, justify, and follow best practices. By the time the mind finishes the analysis, the instinctual window has already closed. Social obedience and knowledge kills intuition. Because business knowledge conditions you to trust memory over awareness. Instincts is the live broadcast. Because business knowledge is a rerun when you're trained to trust the rerun. Business knowledge is a rerun. As you're trained to trust the rerun, you stop hearkening the broadcast. That's how instincts die, not from lack of ability, but from over-reliance on archive thinking. Why thinking, knowing, learning, and knowledge thoughts never get out of yesterday's dismay. Because the mind can only replace what it is already stored. It can never perceive what is happening now. Thinking is memory rearranged. Knowing is memory defended. Learning is memory expanded. Knowledge is memory organized. Thoughts are memory replayed. None of these can touch the present moment. They can only remix yesterday's leftovers because the mind is addicted to continuity even when continuity is misery. The mind would rather repeat a familiar limitation than face an unfamiliar freedom. It clings to old interpretations and old meanings, old fears and old frameworks. How have you witnessed that in your life? I've witnessed that in my life many times. But this liberates me from that. Yesterday's dismay becomes today's identity, and the mind calls that stability. Because the mind speaks from commentary while awareness moves and grooves from clarity. Thinking talks, knowing insists, learning and analyzes, knowledge explains, thoughts narrate, and none of these are awakened to see the world. Only awareness sees, and awareness lives in the now, of the now. That's why the mind stays trapped in yesterday while wisdom talks freely today. Why knowledge is inherited, ancestral, and egotistical illusions. Because knowledge is hand-me-down memory, never direct perception. Why people call knowledge is just ancestral storage, beliefs, fears, rules, interpretations, and conclusions passed down, like psychological heirlooms. It's inherited memory pretending to be truth. The ego clings to it because it feels safer repeating the past than meeting reality directly. As knowledge is the ego's favorite costume, it makes the mind feel important because the mind loves being in control. And if you open up to understand that, you can see how it does. While blocking actual awareness, the ego uses knowledge as performance. I know, I learned, I studied. I think I know, I learned, I studied. And all that is just the past talking through you. The ego inflates itself with information because it can never survive the simplicity of presence. Because knowledge is built from yesterday's illusions, while intuition is crafted from today's clarity. Knowledge is a rerun of ancestral conclusion. Intuition is a live broadcast of here and now. Knowledge keeps you trapped in inherited patterns, inherited fears, and inherited identities. It's an illusion because it's never about, it's never about now. It's always about then. Anything can't meet anything that can't meet the moment is never truth. It's ego. Why college education is inherited ancestral egotistical illusions. Because college education passes down intellectually hand-me-downs instead of awakening direct perception. College never teaches you to see, it teaches you to repeat. It hands in ancestral theories, inherited frameworks, generational assumptions wrapped in academic prestige. It's never authenticity, it's tradition wearing a cap and gown. And you can witness that if you're watching the Iran affair. That is all tradition, you know, a lot of tradition and a lot of hand-me-down stuff, because all traditions and all that are hand-me-down. Because college is built in the ego identity around knowing, never awareness around being. The system trains the educated self, and the educated self, the credentialed self, and I know because I studied self. If you take self out and use the words and put sovereign in there, my sovereign worth, I'm sovereign. It shuts out, it bypasses the mind. The identity is built entirely from the past, memorized, approved, standardized. The ego inflates through information because it can never survive on the simplicity of presence. Because college education worships complexity, which keeps people trapped in inherited illusions. Simplicity unveils authenticity. Complexity protects the egotistical illusion. I've done a good job of protecting some of my egotistical illusions, but now I'm rising out of it. College multiplies concepts, categories, and theories to maintain the illusion of authority. And here's something I'm going to ask. How is your college education actually an unrealized limitation now? It keeps students loyal to ancestral thinking instead of liberated awareness. That's why the educated mind often knows everything about life, but sees nothing as life. That's pretty interesting there. That's why an educated mind often knows everything about life, but sees zilch as life. Why college professors' knowledge is inherited ancestral egotistical illusion. Because professors teach inherited theories, never lived awareness. The entire authority comes from what was taught to them. They pass down academic ancestry like intellectual genealogy theories, frameworks, doctrine, accepted truths, which originated decades or centuries ago. It's never wisdom, it's generational repetition dressed in academic robes. That makes a lot of sense. That's a lot of wisdom there. Because professors build identity around knowing, never around seeing and awareness. The professor ego depends on being the one who knows everything. Their self-worth is tied to expertise, credentials, intellectual superiority. But all that is built from the past, memorized, standardized, institutionalized, egotistical illusions. The ego thrives on knowledge because it can never survive the simplicity of direct perception, prowess, and wisdom. Because academia worships complexity, which protects illusion and suffocates clarity. Professors multiply concepts, categories, and theories to maintain authority. The more complex the subject, the more valuable the professor appears. But complexity is the ego's camouflage. It hides the fact that truth is simple, direct, and available now. Simplicity dissolves the professor's identity, so the system avoids it at all costs. Why thinking, knowing from knowledge strand people in fear, poverty, and destroy awareness. Because thinking and knowing operate from memory, and memory is built from fear, survival, and ancestral scarcity. The mind never thinks from the present, it thinks from the past, and the past is full of survival panic, ancestral struggle, inherited scarcity, generational fear, which mine I did, but now I'm really rising out of it to be aware of the now. So when people rely on thinking and knowing, they're never responding to the now, they're reacting to old wounds. That's why fear becomes normal and poverty becomes familiar. Because knowledge replaces direct awareness with recycled conclusions, and recycled conclusions can never see opportunity. Awareness sees what's available now. Knowledge only sees what's available in the past and through the mind's archive museum. When the mind filters the moment through old beliefs, old failures, old limitations, it blinds people to the abundance right in front of them. I've witnessed that in my life. I'm really opened my eyes wise to that. Poverty isn't just financial, it's perceptional. Knowledge creates the blindness because thinking and knowing protect the ego, and the ego survives by convincing you that you're never enough. The ego uses knowledge to maintain its identity. I must know more before I act. Big one for me. I've risen out of that. Something I'm going to share with you is when you're acting and you're going through it, that's the wisdom of now. It's going to rise you, chauffeur you to your desired outcome. I must think harder before I move. Oh yeah, I did that one. Not anymore. Because I don't think and know and learn knowledge is all out of my life. I must learn everything before I trust myself. That was one of mine that I liberated myself from. This creates paralysis, the root of fear. This creates hesitation, the root of poverty. This destroys awareness, the root of freedom. Awareness never needs to know. It sees, and seeing dissolves fear instantly. Why wisdom, inspiration, intuition, imagination, and innovation destroy knowledge, thinking, knowing, learning, thoughts, and the past? Because wisdom and intuition operate from direct knowality, while knowledge and thinking operate from the archived memory of the mind. Knowledge, thinking, knowing, learning, and thoughts are all past-based echoes, mental past echoes, mental reruns, replaying yesterday's interpretation. Wisdom, intuition, imagination, and innovation come from the live signal, never the archive. The moment you hearken direct perception that arrives, the entire past-based mental structure collapses, because reality overrides memory. But reality is a fallacy. It's nowality, because a lot of reality is run through the museum archives, but nowality brings you to here. Because inspiration, imagination move in infinite possibility, while knowledge and also stunning successful scenarios. While knowledge and thinking move in inherited limitations, knowledge is confined to what was already been concluded. Thinking is confined to what has already been believed. Learning is confined to what has already been taught. These are the walls of the past. Inspiration, intuition, imagination, and innovation blow holes through the walls. They operate beyond the mind's inherited boundaries. The limitless dissolves the limited every time. The limitless dissolves the limited every time to unbind the mind, to unwind the divine. Because wisdom is presence, and presence dissolves the past the moment it is seen. Knowledge talks, thinking argues, knowing insists. Oh, that thinking does argue. I'm good at that one. I was good at it. Knowing insists, learning analyzes, thoughts narrate, all of them keep the past alive. Wisdom listens, intuition whispers, inspiration arrives alive, imagination innovates and creates. Imagination innovates and creates, innovation acts. Presence destroys the entire past-based identity because it reveals that only now is real and everything else is memory performing as truth. Why wisdom, inspiration, intuition, and innovation show for you through life with ease, because wisdom, intuition move from direct reality, direct reality, never mental resistance. Thinking hesitates, knowing argues, learning analyzes, thoughts complicate. As wisdom, intuition bypass all that noise, they respond to what is, never what the mind fears. When you move from direct perception instead of mental projection, life stops being a maze and a mile of a hess and becomes a straight paved road. Because the inspiration and imagination operate from expansion, never survival. The mind is built for protection. Inspiration is built for stunning scenarios of success. Imagination built for creation. Innovation is built for movement. These forces never drag the past into the present. They open the doors the mind never even knew existed. Ease appears the moment you stop navigating life with yesterday's map. How many of you done that? I have. Because these forces dissolve ego, and ego is the only thing that makes life hard. Ego needs to control. Wisdom liberates authentic adventures. Ego needs to know. Intuition liberates Picasso prowess. Intuition liberates Picasso prowess. Ego needs to think. Inspiration dissolves egotistical desperation. When ego steps aside, life stops being a struggle and becomes a flow, because awareness drives destroying fear. That's why wisdom, intuition feel like a chauffeur. They take you where you desire to go without the mind's interference and all the mind's museum archive stuff. But something it is, if you understand thinking, knowing, knowledge, they only take you to yesterday. Wisdom, inspiration, innovation, they chauffeur you through life with ease, and you are the chauffeur of your own life. So anyway, I want to thank you. I'm Robert Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom Hypno Acuity, and may your life be as blessed as you are a blessing to me in the world. And see you Tuesday.